I know, I ate this.
Jan, are you ready?
Oh.
Okay. It's just 6:30, and we will call the Tuesday, December 18th, 2018 meeting of the Planning Commission to order. Our first order of business, we welcome all of you in attendance, and we note that we have a full membership here for the Planning Commission itself, so we do have a quorum. Our first item is to approve the minutes from Tuesday, November 20th. We can consider them if there are no changes or corrections. We can have a motion. Mrs. Latsis, thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. We're approving the minutes by Mrs. Woolman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So we are changing the order of our agenda, and it's been requested that we consider item number 4 first. So we will look and consider case number FDP 18-003, Copperleaf filing number 19, final development plan. And Mr. Skinner from the county will represent the case.
Okay, Planning Commissioners, Bill Skinner from the Planning Division. FDP 18003, Copperleaf 19, Affinity, final plat. It's got a long name. Notice for this hearing consisted of posting a sign on the property, sending letters to the adjacent property owners or neighborhood representatives in the case of single-family detached with an HOA. This is a final development plan application, and as such, the staff is going to ask that the Planning Commission bring forward a recommendation for approval or denial, and then we will take the staff recommendation and the Planning Commission recommendation forward to the board for a determination. The subject property, I'm going to slow down. Subject property is located roughly 700 feet west of the intersection of East Quincy Avenue and Copperleaf Boulevard. As seen on that graphic up on the screen right now, the subject property is in red. You'll notice there are a few extra property lines in there. We're taking care of that right now with an administrative replat. It'll be a single lot when we get done with that. Application requests approval of a senior living facility consisting of, I'm just going to hit the highlights, 170 residential units, a 4-story building on a 6-acre property, which results in a density of 28.3 DU per acre. This land use area, the land use area that overlays this in Copperleaf, we highlighted this in the staff report. It allows a density of 30 units per acre, and I think that came out to 180 units, give or take a decimal point. So they're within their density caps. The project also proposes 4 multi-bay garage buildings. You'll see those on the site plan when I get to that next. A recreation center for indoor activities. It's a detached building from the main building, and an outdoor pool and a pickleball court. I think I'm actually going to borrow Scott's site plan real quick because his graphic is brand new and a little better than the one we have. I'm not sure exactly where I got that, but the site plan for Scott. Presentation. Just the site plan, he has a color site plan. It's on the USB drive. I had it queued up. Yes. That'll work. Okay, on this one, north is to the right. So, I'm going to let Scott go through this to highlight the features. Let's suffice it to say, we've got a large H-shaped building, going to be 4 stories. We've got a recreational center, pickleball court, and then we've got some additional outdoor recreation areas. This FDP, being part of the Copperleaf Plan Unit development, it's required to comply primarily with the requirements set forth in the Copperleaf PUD or PDP. As laid out in the staff report, staff believes that it's accomplished that. The outlying issue on this one is the parking requirement. So the Arapahoe County Land Development Code does not state a parking requirement for senior living. The applicant operates a number of these facilities across the states. They've provided comparable examples in the report attached to the addendum we sent out. In the absence of appropriate direction from the Land Development Code, the applicants propose providing 260 spaces, which is a ratio of 1.53 spaces per unit. Staff supports this. When I looked at the comparables they've provided, I saw a real good faith effort. They've actually set us above the high end of the scale. So, in other words, they didn't try and lowball us, for lack of any other way to put it. So I was impressed with that, and I appreciated that. In other cases in the past, when we've had applicants, say a couple years ago, we had a daycare center. They looked at our requirement and they said, this is really out of line. The staff has, in conjunction with the Planning Commission and the board, inside the bounds of a planned unit development, we've looked at, is the applicant's recommendation better than what we've got on the books? And if they can provide us with enough proof, reports, backup, examples, however we want to go about it, we take them at their word, and we usually go with what they're recommending. In this case, the report they provided, it's substantial. I think it's well done, and I'm inclined to go along with what they're requesting. The board has the authority to approve things like that in the bounds of a PUD. They can look at a situation and say, all right, we've got some leeway on this, and it'll be up to the board to decide if they'll support this when it comes to the approval. The Planning Commission, of course, can make a recommendation with conditions, and you can condition your recommendation, come up with a condition tonight if you wish, to either support or not support the parking specifically. So you too have some flexibility in how your recommendation goes forward tonight. Another point of note is in the graphic on the front of the staff report, there's the property outline, and then there's a green double-ended arrow. The Copperleaf Development Agreement, I think it was crafted in 1999, stated that with development of the properties on the south side of Copperleaf, south side of Quincy, someone was going to build the sidewalk across the entire southern side of Quincy through the whole width and breadth of Copperleaf. That hasn't been done, but in all fairness, staff hasn't realized it was in the DA to require it. We've gone back into that DA and we've learned that in the last 6 months or so. So we are working in as rational a way possible as we can to get those in. In this case, this is going to fill in the gap from the western edge of this property across the Quinte frontage of this property, and then it will continue on the lots east of this property, so off-site improvements, over to Copperleaf Boulevard. We're getting more than we typically would with one of these FDPs. Frequently, the improvement is just for the subject lot. In this case, the applicant is working with Copperleaf. The county engineering staff are working with the applicant and Copperleaf, and we're securing more walk than we'd typically get. We'll continue to do this across Copperleaf all the way from the western edge of Copperleaf to E470. So I guess what I'm saying is we missed that requirement in the DA over time, but we are going to acquire it somewhat aggressively going forward. This applicant, when asked, what can we do, worked with the staff, and after some negotiations has agreed to be a part of this agreement. It's another reason why staff is recommending support for this. Generally speaking, as stated earlier, we think this FDP meets the criteria in the preliminary development plan. They meet the overriding criteria in the land development code about how these are supposed to be processed. And staff recommendation going forward to the board will be for support. You can ask questions of me at this time. We can move into the applicant's presentation and bring me back after they're done. Proceed however you'd like to at this point.
Are there any questions? Okay, we can hear from the applicant, and you can come back if there are other questions. Okay, Scott.
I'll just step out. Do you mind if I? Yeah. Good evening, Commissioners. Perfect. Thank you, Bill. My name is Scott Morris. I'm with the Inland Group. We are a developer, contractor, and owner of multifamily apartments throughout the western United States. I'm based in Spokane, and I thank you for accommodating me and letting me go first as I have a plane to catch tonight. I've been on the road for a couple of days and I have a son home from college, and I'm excited to get home, so thank you for that accommodation. While Spokane's home for me, for the Inland Group, the Front Range is about as home as we get. We have 11 open operating projects in the Front Range, and a couple more in development, including this one. 6 of the 11 are senior products, and 4 of them are the Affinity product that we're proposing on this site. Affinity was kind of born about 7 or 8 years ago. It's been super successful, and we have got 20-some of them across this far east as Minnesota and Texas, and all through. There's 4 in the Front Range, and this would be the 5th. It was kind of born out of trying to find something for active adults where they wanted to live in what would be called a congregate care facility, where you have the food and health care, but they couldn't afford it and they don't need the health care or the food. So we've kind of taken that building and the secured access and the elevators with the age restriction and provided those type of amenities, but it's for a population that's not in need of the food or the health care, and bringing the cost down. So there's no buy-in. These are apartments, something that is meant to be affordable for everyone. And every room has a full kitchen with washer and dryer, walk-in closets. Every room has a patio and deck. But then we really try and get the seniors out to become part of the community. So there's just a lot of amenities throughout the projects. So in addition to the elevators and the secured access, there's a lounge, there's a theater, there's an internet cafe, there's a pub, a craft room, a wood shop, a fitness room, a billiards game room, a library, a family dining room, a pool house, a spa. There's community gardens, pickleball court, outdoor fireplace and barbecue area, and also a dog park and dog washing station. Real quickly, I thought I'd just run you through some photographs. This is the Affinity at Colorado Springs, and from a design standpoint, the shape is not the same as this one. This one's an H-shaped building. Colors are very similar, although the red has been toned down. You see the stone on the bottom with stucco in 4 different colors. There's the pool house with the outdoor area, a fire pit. This is at Loveland. Very similar entryway. Fort Collins. There's the pickleball court, the pool building, spa, theater room, library, internet cafe, living room, game room, craft room, the pub. Anyway, that's to give you an example of it. And I just wanted to give you a quick overview, but I'm not going to take more of your time going through it, and I'm happy to answer questions. I'll tell you that it's nice to be in front of the Planning Commission and eventually the county when we have no issues with the staff's comments, recommendations, or conditions. Don't love all of them, but we understand. We're obviously being asked to do some sidewalks that exceed our frontage, and that's not typical, but we do understand the basis for that, and we do agree, and we're going to work with the landowner next to us to try and share that cost, and we understand that's a condition of our development that we're willing to accept. As far as the parking, I guess it's technically a variance, but there is nothing in the code. You can usually tell a developer from an owner-operator because as an owner-operator, the worst thing we could do is fool ourselves by not having enough parking. If you don't have enough parking, you're going to have high turnover. Residents are going to be unhappy. You're not going to be able to have smooth operations. So we have no interest in doing that, and we are extremely comfortable at parking it at 1.5 spaces per unit. We've got over 20 of these, and we know that isn't enough parking where there's going to be ample extra spaces and people able to park near their units and do the things that they need to do, and still not so overparked where you just have a sea of concrete. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over to you, cognizant of your time, and answer any questions that you may have.
Do you have any questions? I have a question. Who's going to pay for the exterior maintenance? The interior road is private, but you said everything is for rent?
Correct.
Who's going to take care of the roofing and the paint on the exterior of the building?
We would be, as the owner.
You would be doing that?
Yes.
Have you considered upgrading your proposed roofing? Because when I looked up Oak Ridge Peak, it's really one half a step above 3-tab, and is that what you typically use?
Yeah, this composite roof is what we have on other Affinities, including in the Front Range, and it's held up well.
Okay. Surprising. And I was concerned that you don't have very many evergreens proposed for your landscaping. I had pinyon, but it's a lot of parking and a very narrow strip on the north side, like next to Quincy. How wide is that with the sidewalk, proposed sidewalk, and the landscaping?
Let me see if I can pull up that site plan again. So, Quincy's off to the right. Where are you speaking now?
Right.
On that area?
Yes.
And what was your...
How wide is the landscaped area?
You're going to test me a little bit on guessing, but I would say maybe 15 feet.
I can help with that. The plans along the north side show about a 20-foot landscape strip. It includes the walk.
And that would be a detached walk?
It's a detached walk, yes.
It does seem like a lot of, I guess the parking might be good, but even in your other slides, there's not a lot of landscaping or green area. So I guess you find that the people that want to live there, that's not important.
Well, I wouldn't say that it's not important. I think that, the site is kind of what the site is. It's 6 acres, and we're trying to use that appropriately. We've gone with some mulch instead of turf to conserve water and things of that nature and be responsible in that regard. We do have the pickleball court and the gardens out there with the dog park. And then there's also supposed to be parks and trail systems throughout the Copperleaf development that'll be taken advantage of too.
On Fort Collins and Loveland, how many acres did you have for those?
Fort Collins is very similar. It's 5.5 acres. Loveland is actually an 11-acre site, which is too big, but it was an infill site, and that's what we ended up with.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Do you count the garages as parking spots?
The garages are included in parking spots.
Garages then?
I can tell you that real quick here unless...
And those garages are for rent, separate from the apartments, right?
They're, detached garages.
Right.
Yes. It looks like there are 50 garage spaces. 203 standard, 8 handicap, for a total of 261 is what I'm showing right here.
Madam Chair, I'd like to just make a comment. I would just like to applaud you on making this a very active senior housing community. I like to see that hybrid where, it just gives people a lot more options. So I commend you for that.
Are there any other comments or questions?
I have a question for Mr. Skinner.
Very good.
So why wasn't the agreement in terms of the number of parking spaces a condition that was added to this?
The staff report? Because I turned that staffing report over to be emailed out, and then I think it was Thursday night at about 3 a.m. woke up in the middle of the night and realized I had failed to inform you of the parking request. That's why it came through as an addendum and why I didn't add it in. We had a choice between either trying to modify the staff report and then give you duplicate materials, which may have been confusing, or adding an addendum, and then I'll help you craft that condition if needed tonight.
And Jason Reynolds, Planning. One clarification, the plans presented to the Planning Commission this evening anticipate the applicant's proposed parking. So if the Planning Commission votes to recommend approval of what is presented with staff conditions, the parking proposed by the applicant is part of that. There is no separate condition required if you agree with the applicant's proposal.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Bill, if this were just a regular apartment house, what would the parking requirement be?
Oh, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, that's about 326.
So they're 60 spaces short.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That would be 60, 70.
Yeah, I'd need to sit down and do the math. I can do that. I was off by 20.
So they're quite a bit short of if it was just a regular apartment house.
It depends how you look at it. Yes, compared to that standard, it's a lot different. We realize that we probably don't have the latest and greatest information for how people are occupying things like this. There's certainly an option to hold them to that kind of a standard. It could be part of the Planning Commission's recommendation.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Mr. Skinner, yes?
So, if there's not enough parking places, where are these people going to park in this Copperleaf area?
Yep, that's a good question. I thought about that as well. The part of it, I would be more concerned about, I don't want to say that, I don't want to imply I'm not. If this were up against a neighborhood and the property lines were flat, there were lots of connecting drives or entrance ways directly from this to adjacent neighborhoods, then it would be somewhat safe to assume that if we got into that situation, I want to highlight the if on that parking would bleed over into the street parking in the adjacent neighborhoods. Just topography and the way this is designed, you don't have those direct connections. So on the one hand, the opportunity to bleed out isn't there. I actually see that as a positive because, as they said, they intend to own and operate this. I would hope, I would assume that they're not designing something that they know is going to have some kind of a fail mode in it. And I was considering this from as many angles as I could. It's, where it's located in the metro area and what it's up against, what it's not up against.
So what demographics were used to come up with this parking figure? I mean, I understand the age, but are we talking singles, doubles, if it's mostly couples, you don't have?
It's a fair question. We'd have to ask the applicant about that. They had their traffic engineer run this up, and I'm not aware of the specifics. But we can do that.
So what's the parking? I mean, surely we have car statistics for the Denver metro area. How many cars per
person given specific demographics?
Yeah, is it one car for every 3 people, or what? How do you come up with this magic number of parking places here? That's what, 60 off or 80 off or whatever the number is?
Chuck, the ITE talks about trip generation, right? Does that go beyond that into ownership? Okay.
Got a question.
Yeah. Commissioner Chapman, that is probably best answered by the applicant, who provided a detailed and thorough analysis of comparable buildings that they manage throughout the United States. So if anyone's going to have those demographic details, it would be the applicant.
Mrs. Alexis, do you have a question?
I was going to echo what Jason just said, which is maybe the applicant can tell us how they model this and how they know it works.
Very good.
Yeah, at this point, I'm just waiting to see if you want me to turn it back over to them.
I think you have to turn it back over to the applicant.
Real quick, what is to the east of there then? What's the lot number 2? What's on lot number 2? Can you remind us what's over there?
There's an approved final development plan for another senior facility, though it's a different level of care. I got first contacted on this overall piece of Copperleaf probably on the high side of 3 years ago with a proposal that considered all of these lots with different stages of care, everything from townhomes that were age restricted with no supervision to what we would typically think of as nursing care with 24-hour supervision on a different site. So at the moment, we have an approved FDP to the east for a different level of senior care.
And what's on lot number 4?
Lot number 4, refresh my memory, is that the one all the way to the east up against Copperleaf Boulevard, or is that the tiny little out parcel?
It's kind of, I think what you said it the first time. So it's this spot right here.
Thank you very much. We've had a few applicants, and by few I mean 3 specifically, come in and talk to us about different possible development scenarios for that. Nothing is fleshed out yet.
So this property and lot number 2 are going to share that entranceway off of Quincy,
which is preferable. We don't want to cut too many curb cuts into Quincy.
Right.
The lot you just mentioned, lot 4, which is removed from Quincy, would also utilize that through cross lot access agreements.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Scott, you want
I will. Thanks. Yeah. And just so you know, the ITE manual, that does have a senior adult housing category, has peak parking demand at 0.66 per dwelling unit. We'd be higher than that, quite frankly, and because we're a little bit younger population. But I will tell you that there'll be a significant number of individuals over the age of 80 residing here. There'll be a significant number of individuals who will not have vehicles, and probably anywhere from 40 to 60% of the individuals that live here will be single. A lot of there's couples and there's single people widowers and others who choose to live in this facility. And so the number of units that actually would have 2 cars, I wouldn't say it's rare, but it's not pushing anywhere near 50% of these units. You first of all have to have 2 occupants, and then you have to have people that are looking for this product type. They're not the people who are able to go buy into another facility, an age-in-place facility that has the food options and things like that. So typically, you're not seeing as many 2-car households living in these. In our traffic report prepared by our traffic engineer, we listed 11 other affinity projects that are parked at less than this is parked, and we're not having parking issues there. We look at our overall demographics, and we are super comfortable. We could cut off a lot of these. And if there was street parking in the vicinity, we probably would, because we think this is overparked. There might be 30, 40 parking spots on this that we don't need, but when you don't have the street parking, you always err on the side of additional parking spaces, which is why you're not seeing us turn it into green space, even if we believe they're not going to be used. And so from our demographics and from our operations of these, we're just really comfortable that we're not asking truly for a reduction. I know it's a reduction from the family, but if you look at the family code takes for studios, studio apartments, and it says that you have 1.5 stalls for each studio. Well, our studios are never occupied by 2 people, and a lot of the people in the studios don't have the vehicles, and they're looking for something less expensive, and they're getting a smaller unit. And to have a code that would require 1.5 for a studio unit, again, a 500 square foot studio, I really think that code's not applicable when you apply our demographics.
What's the visitor traffic? I mean, obviously you were speaking about the occupants of the units, but what's the visitor traffic in facilities like this, in apartment complexes like this?
Well, there's definitely families that are visiting. It's not overnight visitors, and it's kind of nice because a lot of the people here are working. And so what you're going to find is during the day that there are a lot of parking spaces open, and then they start to fill up in the evenings and things like that, and most of the visitor parking is during the day. So it's definitely been taken into account, and comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any final questions for Mr. Skinner? Okay, then we'll open the public hearing. If anybody wishes to speak to this development, please come forward. Is there a sign-in sheet? Okay. You don't have to sign in if you still would like to come forward and make a comment or ask a question. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and bring it back. Are there any other additional comments that the representative wants to make? Okay. Bring it back to the Planning Commission then for consideration. Mrs. Johnson, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion.
Very good.
In the case of FDP 18-003, Copperleaf number 19, final development plan, I reviewed the staff report, including all exhibits and attachments, and have listened to the applicant's presentation and any public comment as presented at the hearing, and hereby move to recommend approval of this application based on the findings in the staff report, subject to the following conditions 1 through 4.
We have a second for the motion?
I'll second.
Okay. We have a second for the motion by Mr. Brummel. Any other comments? Those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Okay. The next item of business is case number PM 18-003, Olson Minor Subdivision. And Molly Oakland-Larson will represent the county.
Good evening, Commissioners. Molly Rickhild-Larson, Senior Planner with the Public Works Department. The County Attorney has reviewed the public notice and has determined that the applicant has met all the notice requirements, thereby establishing jurisdiction. What's before you this evening is the Olson Minor Subdivision. The applicant is Jerry and Alberta Olson, and the subject property is located at 288 North Manila Road. In 1991, a 4-acre parcel was divided into two 20-acre properties without going through a county platting review process. And the applicant is here today to remedy this situation by platting his parcel. Staff recommends approval based on the findings of the staff report. This concludes my very short presentation, and if I have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them for you.
Are there any questions?
The applicant is here tonight to answer any questions. He doesn't have a presentation, but he's more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
How did that end up getting split back in 1991?
That's a good question. What happens a lot of times that we've been finding is that somebody just goes out and does a survey of the property and records it over at the clerk and recorder, and we don't know anything about it. So unfortunately, that has happened.
And what's happened to the other half? The other 20 acres?
We're talking with him now and actually sent him a staff report, so we're hoping he'll come in. Yeah.
Any other questions? Does the applicant the owner wish to make a statement?
No, it was a 40-acre parcel divided into two wards.
Could you please just come forward and state your name so we have it for the record and your address?
Gerald Olson, 288 North Manila Road. 2 warranty deeds were written by the owner of the 40-acre parcel and sold, it looks like from a husband to a wife, the north 20 acres and then south 20 acres in 1991. So when we bought the property in 2004, we were unaware that was an issue. There's been multiple building permits for the site, utilities, 3 electric meters and 2 gas meters, and everything that they say you're not supposed to be able to do with illegally subdivided property, previous owners have done. So we're having to go through this process of minor subdivision just to get the county to recognize that our 20 acres is legal and we can continue to pay property tax on the 20 acres. Any questions of me?
Any questions?
We don't intend to do anything to the property except continue to live there and use it as we normally would. But we wanted to get this cleared up in case we do want to sell the property someday.
Okay, thank you very much. And do you have a question?
No.
Okay. We will open the public hearing. We have 2 people that have signed and wish to address. The first one is John Walls of East Briarwood. Do you wish to speak?
No, ma'am, not right now, not this. I guess it's on the wrong piece of paper.
Okay. Okay, you're not here for the Olson, and Shirley?
Is that on the buyer's part?
No, it's on for the Olson. Okay, you're for the buyer's one? All right, then they're mixed up. Okay, that one is blank. Thank you very much. Okay, then if there's anybody else that wishes to speak, you don't have to have signed in. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the Planning Commission.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Very good.
In the case of PM 18-003 Olson Minor Subdivision, the Planning Commissioners have reviewed the staff report, including all exhibits and attachments, and have listened to the applicant's presentation and the public comment as presented at the public hearing, of which there was none. I hereby move to approve this application based on the findings in the staff report, subject to condition number 1.
We have a second for the motion?
I'll second.
Very good. Okay. Mr. Stahl has seconded the motion. Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So now we will move on to the Byers Park and Recreation District, case number LE 18-001. Kat Hammer will represent the county.
Good evening. The county attorney has reviewed the noticing requirements and determined that the applicant has met the requirements, thereby establishing jurisdiction for the Planning Commission to make a determination on this case. The proposed site is located northwest of the intersection of South Jewel Circle and West Front Street in Byers. The applicant, Melissa Kendrick, on behalf of the owners, Byers Park and Recreation District, is requesting approval of the Byers Park and Recreation location and extent to renovate the existing community park. They're hoping to increase the public park's usability, modernize the facilities, and expand the programming. The improvements to the site include a new play area with surfacing, new turf area, swing set, basketball court, 2 picnic pavilions, 2 off-street parking spaces, 1 space is ADA, sidewalk along Front Street, additional landscaping, and water quality for the site. The site is approximately 1.5 acres and currently is unplatted, so a plat will be required for this location and extent to be approved. The Byers Park and Recreation District purchased the park in 1986. The applicant has indicated that some people in the community recall playing in the park in the early 1950s. I believe that was the date, yes. The Byers Park and Recreation District has been actively pursuing public input since 2015 on this project. The first public meeting occurred in October of 2015 in the town of Byers at a volleyball tournament. On January 6th, the applicant presented to the Gold and Silver organization asking for their input on the park, and the second public meeting was held in February of 2016. The applicant has indicated the general feedback from both community meetings was positive. Considering the findings and other information provided herein, staff recommends approval of case number LE 18-001, Byers Park and Recreation District, location and extent, with the conditions recommended in this report. The applicant, Melissa Kendrick, does have a short PowerPoint. I'll ask her to come up if you guys do not have any questions for me.
Any questions? Okay. That was Melissa.
Good evening. I'm Rita Davis with Byers Park and Rec, and our whole board is here tonight. Robin Metcalf in the back, Shirley Gunter here, and John Walls was the gentleman who just stepped out. And I just want to thank you for your time and consideration of this matter moving forward. We've been working really hard on this for the last few years. We are new to the board as far as this project goes. The previous board had started the process, and we stepped in, and we're trying to continue it to completion. I would like to introduce Melissa Kendrick. She is the consultant who has helped us move this along and get it through the planning process. and so she's going to go through our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I've been introduced twice already, so I think you know who I am. So we're pleased to get this far. It's taken a number of years to get to where we are. But I wanted to start with where we're located. Hopefully you've all been to Byers. This is our little park site. It's in your backup material. It's along Front Street and Fetzer.
Can you light it up on this screen so we can...
Oh, that would be helpful, wouldn't it? Okay, sure. Yeah, so here's Front Street and here's Fetzer. You can see here's 36 and I-70. So a lot of the old town of Byers is in that location. As was mentioned, the property was acquired in 1986 from the Union Pacific Railroad. It's been zoned open space probably ever since. And a subdivision exemption plat was approved last week for this site. So we are now officially a platted lot. So that's a big step. This isn't about our grant status tonight, but I wanted to let you know that the district has been working a long time. So from 2013, when we started with the master plan, that's when it was determined that this park was the highest priority. And then this is our third phase of planning grants through Arapahoe County Open Spaces. The first one is when this concept plan was developed. The second one was really the community outreach phase, which is what Kat mentioned in terms of, many of the meetings that we held at that time. And then this is the current one, and our task is to complete this L&E and the subdivision exemption and the CDs. So we're just about there. We can see the finish line. So this is the subdivision exemption plat. The site is 1.5 acres in size. This is Front Street here, and this is Fetzer, excuse me. It is, like I said, that now it's lot 1. So it's one big lot. This is the 20-foot access easement that's mentioned in the engineer's staff report. And what's also mentioned is this public use easement, which is where the sidewalk will be located on the property. This is the detention facility you'll see on the site plan. You have seen on the site plan, and I'll talk about next. So this is the rendered image of it, which is helpful to kind of differentiate what's going on. This is the main entrance. The main entrance location will not change, but essentially what will happen is this entire site will be regraded and the drainage will be repaired. So the soil will be amended, and this will begin to really change the environment that the park is in. So as a portion of the former railroad property, the soil, they've been fighting the soils ever since, and the drainage has never really worked well. So these will be big improvements. This drainage facility kind of runs across here. So at the beginning, that regrading is going to begin to really repair the site. Right now, if you've been out there, this is the turf area currently. And so it will continue to be kind of turf on the right and playground on the left. But the equipment that's out there had its long life long ago and is in need of replacement. So this main entrance will remain the same. There's a berm out there now that will be removed, and that's been a little controversial with the community. Some of the community members don't want to lose the trees, but vandalism is a significant issue for this park, and so getting rid of that berm and really kind of opening it up is going to help keep eyes on the park. So that's a positive change. The turf itself, once amended and contained, is going to be a much better environment for that. This park gets used by Pee-wee soccer and football and the whole entire community, from the Easter egg hunt to the 4th of July and so on. So all that turf area will be well used. This playground gets completely renovated on a new, one of those soft surfaces. So it'll be much more durable, and we believe in the end the park is going to be easier for the district to maintain. There will be 2 pavilions planned and constructed. There's 1 bathroom area right now that's probably going to be a placeholder for a long time to come. That's one of the most expensive parts of the park.
but it's considered. We have the swing set here, a sport court here. There are 2 parking spaces right off the street. And then we have, can't go without detention pond. So we have a good detention pond there that is designed to capture the flows that are necessary for this park. So I think that really are the main features of the park. This is the nitty-gritty details, so we won't do that for now. So there are 2 conditions of the approval that the district is very comfortable with, and so we're certainly requesting approval from you, a recommendation of approval this evening. So thank you for your time.
I have a question. Are you going to have on-street parking available? You only show
Yes.
parking spaces.
Yes. All along Front Street. Now, if you have been out there, having a curb, it'll be the first curb in Byers, I think. So that is going to improve the situation for this parallel parking. It's a wide street, and a lot of these buildings are vacant right now, so there'll be plenty of parking. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Okay, we'll open the public hearing. We do have 2 people signed up. John Walls, did you want to speak? Okay.
My name is Shirley Gunter, and I have lived in Byers most of my life, and I'm familiar with the park that exists there now. And we definitely need a new park. But what I'm here tonight to oppose is the design and planning of it. I think is too elaborate for our little community, and the expense of it is $600,000. And it just seems like we hate to lose our old trees, and we hate to see it all completely leveled out and redesigned. And I guess because I'm from the community, I have a feel for it. So, but we do need a new park, and I think if we could come down on the price and redesign a little bit, not so elaborate for our community. We have a hard time maintaining the small one that we have now, so we have a larger one that's even going to be harder to maintain, I'm sure. And we have vandalism, yes, but not to the point of where we have to take down the trees to open it up. And that I had a letter from one of the county people that said that I had talked to, and he said that hopefully your designer will work with your board to value engineer and some cost savings for you. And he also thought this type of park would be all right in Aurora or Denver, but for a small community, I think it's very elaborate. So that's my opposed, but we do need a park, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to come forward and speak?
I can quit coughing. My name's John Walls. I'm on the Byers Park and Rec since May, and I don't have much information in the past about this. I'm trying to understand. This park is a acre and a half big, and somewhere around the finished product, I understand, is about $800,000, and that's an awful lot of money. And we've got some problems in the park now that can be easily fixed. Things in the park need to be fixed. But some of the things that are in this proposal that I found out in the last couple of weeks is 3 picnic tables, $3,000 a piece. 10 picnic tables, $2,500 a piece. 5 trash cans, $1,250 a piece. And I don't think they're automatic trash cans. I think they're just plain Jane. And we've got concrete poured around the sandy areas where the kids are going to play, like a protector. And I don't know, it just seems like it's a very expensive park when it doesn't have to be, because, and we don't have anything for lights right now. And I can see on what I saw in the last couple of days, we don't have any plans for lights to be used at night. And, but the trees are big, they are pretty, they need to be trimmed up a little bit, and I think they do a great job. We'll be the only park in the area, city park, that would have trees that weren't brought in. And they're, 30, 40 feet tall.
Who is providing the funding for the park?
I haven't been told yet. Somebody can.
You need to come forward and speak into
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
I've been working with Arapahoe County Open Space, and I have applied for a grant. The board, the board has applied for a grant, and we've been awarded $326,000 through the Arapahoe County Open Space, and I followed that up with application for the grant through GOCO for $350,000 and a grant through Colorado Health Foundation for $115,000. So the grant that we have received from Arapahoe County Open Space is on the condition that I come up with the match, and that's what the point of the other two are. The Colorado Health Foundation grant was due October 15th, so it was submitted then, and it's in the process of being reviewed. And same with GOCO was November 11th. Both of those funding sources would be, they would let us know if we got the grant in March, so it would be relatively soon. And the Arapahoe County Open Space grant, we have a year to come up with that match before then that gets rescinded. So that is what I have, the funding plan, if you will, that we came up with. Our operating budget is about $60,000 a year, so there was no way with that tax revenue base we would be able to, afford to even do minor things at the park. So those, that is the plan. And as I stated before, the previous board had started this process, so it was already in motion. I can speak to some of the information about the trees if anyone had any questions. We are replacing the trees with ones that are more sustainable and resilient and have a little longer life than the cottonwoods. Of course, once, at installation, they're smaller and it takes a while for them to grow. But they would be 15 to 20 feet tall and have a spread of about 8 to 10 feet. And we've chosen a couple different species that would provide that shade. And then there's going to be smaller ones so that there's different variations.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Are there any other members of the public that wish to come forward with questions?
I had a question of the applicant.
Okay.
I guess my question is, because obviously implementing the park is contingent on funding. Do you intend to implement it in phases or all at once? Or
So if we get the Colorado Health Foundation and not the GOCO grant, we would move forward with what we've deemed as phase one. Phase one would be the turf area, the play area, partial walks, around the turf area, one of the pavilions. And then, the rest of the area would be stable and partial landscaping. The play area would include the 5R and play equipment, and then we would stabilize it until we could go back to Arapahoe County and get funding for phase two. If we get GOCO and not the Colorado Health Foundation, the bathroom facility would have to wait for the following year. If we can get both of those, we'll be able to do it in one fell swoop.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have an additional question. So going forward, let's just say that you had your grant money matched and you had all the money you needed to construct the park. Going forward, would you have enough in your budget to be able to maintain the park?
Yes. Yes, there is a draft maintenance plan that was provided by the landscape architect that rendered these drawings. He it has indicated that, in fact, the maintenance would be less than what we currently are. Melissa spoke to those berms. Those berms get weeds and stickers and awful things in them, and when community service people get in trouble, I make them go pull weeds at the park. We'll have a lot more for them to do somewhere else. But at any rate, it takes hours and hours to try to maintain the park and to abate the stickers and those kind of things without killing any of the other landscaping around them. So it takes a lot of time to maintain it as it is now. We have $10,000 in our maintenance budget, and we are have done some rearranging with our accounting as far as how that's the firm that we're using, so we're saving more money there, and so that additional savings is being moved to the maintenance line item, so there would be approximately $18,000 in that line item for the continued maintenance. And then in addition to that, as a portion of, I call it a PM program, so just like you put away money for, say, for a rainy day, so to speak, if there are, and in the maintenance plan it just speaks to that, there are items that we would need to, squirrel away a little bit of money each year for, so then when, if a bench needed to be replaced, or we needed concrete replaced, or the fly bar in the play area needed to be replaced, then those funds would be there.
What is the level now of vandalism and graffiti? Because do you have a graffiti problem? I guess I should ask that.
Well, we've had 2 incidences over the summer. One, there is a different restroom facility there now, and somebody tried to break into that, and they broke a lock, and they, they painted some stuff on the door, and they did that kind of thing. And then there was another incident. I don't remember the specifics, but it was something we had to go in and clean up. We did have another issue with one of the cottonwoods that is relatively close to the street, dropped a very large branch, bent the fence, and it needs to need some love.
How about the play equipment? Has that been vandalized at all?
No, it's just old and worn out. I have 2 grandchildren, and to be brutally honest, when I was working on the grants and getting public support basically for this, a lot of the letters from the families out there stated that they go to Strasburg or Bennett because they have newer, nicer parks that have nice play equipment that their kids don't get bored playing at.
The reason that I asked about potential vandalism with your current play equipment is because in areas around the metro area, in private parks within housing developments, that's a problem for us, okay, where people vandalize the play equipment and replacing the play equipment. I mean, getting rid of graffiti, you can always find somebody who's good at getting rid of graffiti, but it's the vandalism where equipment is broken and needs to be replaced, because park equipment that's commercial grade is really expensive. I think there's only 2 vendors in the United States that design that kind of equipment. Thus, my question to you about what your budget looks like, and a rainy day fund would definitely be necessary.
Yes, we, in addition to our tax revenue, we get what's called Conservation Trust Fund money, and we get $13,000, $15,000 in that ballpark that we get each year for that. And we have not spent that down, so we actually are carrying a positive balance. So going into this next year, we're carrying a balance of, I would say, around $29,000 off the top of my head. And when you were talking about the equipment getting vandalized, I remembered the other incident. We had a basketball hoop that just got bent down, so it got repaired and put back up. But the actual play structure and the swings, those kind of things have not we haven't had an issue with those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public would like to come forward? Please state your name and address.
I'm Robin Metcalf. I'm part of the Byer Parks and Rec Board, and I live in Byers also. I have grandkids. I still have kids in school. And just like Rita said, we go to other towns. And my theory is I don't think this is too big for our town. Our town is growing. We've got 2 new subdivisions coming in, which you guys probably already know because they come up here and probably present it to you guys. I would like to take my kids just down the street instead of, each town is 5 or 10 miles away. I live about 10 miles south from the town, but I think this would be awesome. And my kids do too. We did a little survey with all the kids and asked if they would like to have a new park, and we did like a ballot sheet. All the kids, we asked their parents, they filled it out like if they were doing something like to vote. They had the greatest fun. We were going to bring them just so you guys could see. But anyway, I have been there pulling the weeds, because we're a working board, by the way. So we go out, we mow, we pull weeds, that kind of thing. This would be awesome to actually have our kids come and play the Pee-wee football, T-ball practices and stuff. And they do it now in our grass that we have, because we do have a nice little grass area right now. But there is so much stuff that needs to be done. Like they were saying, the drainage system, all that kind of stuff. So, but I personally, I was at the beginning when they started doing this planning, and I'm like, if people opposed it, why didn't they say something then? Because then we could have probably stopped it and, but with the grants that we have, it's not our taxpayers' money, and that was a lot of people's concern. I think this would be a perfect opportunity for Byerstown, so everybody would know. Otherwise, it would go with somebody else, and they would make a better park at their other places. And I want it in Byers. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else wish to come forward? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the Planning Commission. Anybody wish to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. In the case of case number LE 18-001, Byers Park and Recreation District, location and extent, I have reviewed the staff report, including all exhibits and attachments, and have listened to the applicant's presentation and any public comment as presented at the hearing, and hereby move to approve this application based on the findings in the staff report, subject to the following condition number 1.
We have a second to the motion?
I second.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mrs. Woolman seconded the motion. Okay. We will now move on to our final case of the evening, case number SDPZ 18-002, Dove Valley Business Park. And Kat Hammer will represent the county.
Okay, the case before you tonight is located south of the intersection of East Broncos Parkway and South Potomac Street. It is within the Dove Valley subdivision and master development plan. The property is exempt from Centennial Airport planning area because it is part of the Dove Valley business master development plan. The proposal before you tonight is to rezone the property to allow for different uses. Opus Development Company and Kimley Horn on behalf of the owner, Arapahoe County Airport Authority, proposed to develop 3 existing vacant parcels. The approved Dove Valley Master Development Plan designates the project site as Use Area E and Use Area B. I have included those uses in your packet for your review. The applicant is proposing to change the zoning to allow for Use Area F and B for both parcels. The main difference is the removal of Use Area E will eliminate the permitted use of outdoor storage as a primary use. The proposal consists of 2 light industrial office buildings and associated parking, sidewalks, and landscaping. In order to accommodate for the proposed light industrial/office buildings, lots 1 and 2 are being reconfigured through the final plat process. That is being processed right now, and the Board of County Commissioners will make determination on that final plat in early 2019. The applicant also submitted an administrative site plan at the same time as this application. The ASP will provide the details of the proposed project, including the landscaping, the specific lighting, building elevations, and materials. So the application before you tonight is just requesting to change the zoning to allow for those uses. Staff is recommending approval of this application. There are 4 conditions of approval. I want to point out to you that condition number 2 indicates that the applicant will need to provide evidence of required infrastructure and drainage. That will be provided at the time of the ASP. The zoning application does not really, there's no huge issues about a lack of infrastructure or drainage with the change of the zone, of the allowed uses. And then condition number 4 requires that the applicant work with South Metro Fire. It's my understanding that the applicant is working through the issues that South Metro Fire did have, and that will be worked out through the ASP process as well. Brian Dietz with the Opus Group does have a short presentation. I will invite him up if you do not have any questions for me. No questions? Okay.
I actually do have one question. I know this probably isn't part of the zoning change, but when I read through the materials, it spoke a lot about egress from the area and how people were turning onto, I think it was Potomac, to make a no left turn to like get onto Potomac to get away out of the area. Is that being addressed? Because there's a lot of traffic on Potomac, especially both of these streets, Broncos Parkway as well, especially during rush hour, which these days extends for hours and hours. So I was wondering whether that was being addressed as well, what the best plan was in order to handle egress from that site during those periods of time, because I don't know whether this is going to be eventually developed as warehouse space or sports court space, because there's a lot of different allowed uses under the zoning, and some produce much more traffic than others. So I was curious about that.
Right, a traffic impact study was provided as it was analyzed as part of this project. The proposal initially came in with the north axis being a full movement axis. Since then, staff has not approved that full movement axis, and it will be a right in and right out on the northern axis for this proposal.
Okay, because I'm just concerned with people cutting across. I guess it's over there. I think there's 3 lanes of traffic, I think, to be able to kind of hook around and make a left turn. And, at certain times of the day, that's going to be nearly impossible to cut across 3 lanes of traffic without causing incidents and, accidents for sure.
Right. It's my understanding that it doesn't quite yet warrant a signal, but it was analyzed as part of this application. And if you have further questions, I can invite the engineering department to address that as well.
Thank you. Could you reconfirm the status of South Metro Fire? I have never seen them turn down an application. So what is the status of their requirements?
I think there was a little bit of miscommunication that the administrative site plan was coming after the specific development plan. So the applicant needs to work with South Metro Fire to determine that they have the needs that the requirements that the South Metro Fire District needs. That's why I included it as part of a condition of approval, and it will
I have
be
no doubt that that will be worked out.
correct.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. We will now open the public hearing. We have several people that have signed up.
We do have the applicant here who would like to make a short presentation.
Getting ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Brian Dietz with the Opus Development Company. You can see the site here. The outline in blue is the Dove Valley Master Plan area. In red is our subject site. It's about 27 acres. We're under contract with the Arapahoe County Airport Authority, which you can see just off the southwest of the Dove Valley Master Plan area, to acquire this parcel. This is what we're planning on developing, 2 light industrial buildings, which are pretty commensurate with other developments that are within the area. This is the current land use plan for Dove Valley. You can see the site outlined in red. The eastern side of the site is land use area B. The western side of the site is land use area E. The entire Dove Valley development is all land use area A. So B adds on to A and the E adds on to A as well. These are the current land use designations of A, B, and E on the left. I call attention specifically to the red box under A under warehouse and distribution facilities, and the red box under E under outdoor storage as a principal use. Basically, today, under land use area A, what we are proposing to develop is allowable. These buildings will be speculative developments, where we will be seeking tenants to occupy them, and our goal here is to not limit the tenancy to the buildings. So what we'd like to do is give up land use area E, which allows outdoor storage as a principal use, and add land use area F, which I've circled in red there, the uses that we think are important to have at this building, specifically like manufacturing, contractors, repair and rental servicing, laboratories. This is again coming back to Dove Valley Master Plan area, and what's outlined is in yellow are all of the areas where land use area F is currently allowed. So it's in pretty close proximity to areas where this land use designation is already allowed. And lastly is just a letter from Dove Valley ownership from Glenn Sandler, not opposing our request to add this land use designation F and remove the land use designation E. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Are there any questions? Thank you very much. Okay, we will now open the public hearing. We have several people signed up. We have Cliff from Bucknell Way. Is he here? The second one is Joe Swenson. Okay. Brian Dietz.
That's just me.
You just did that. Brad Cooney. Okay. And Mark Johnson.
That's me.
Would you like to speak? Okay. Anybody else here wish to speak? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to consideration for the board unless there are any other questions. Are we ready for a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Very good, thank you.
In the case of case number SDP 18-002, Dove Valley Business Park, SDP 4th, I have reviewed the staff report, including all exhibits and attachments, and have listened to the applicant's presentation, and any public comment is presented at the hearing, and hereby move to approve this application based on the findings in the staff report, subject to conditions 1 through 4.
Do we have a second for the motion?
I'll second.
Mrs. Chaffin seconds the motion. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Are there any announcements, Jan?
Just quickly following up on the bees and chickens ordinance, we checked in with the Board of County Commissioners who said, yes, please do go forward and send it out to homeowners associations and other interested parties, and we'll be bringing it to public hearings in the near future. So first for backyard bees and chickens in residential areas. Oh. Yes, and one other announcement is that the first meeting in January is January 8th due to New Year's Day falling on a normal planning commission day. So
okay, so January 8th is the next meeting.
Yes, so we'll see you after the new year.
Meeting is adjourned.